The sidelined police minister, a member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, Senzo Mchunu, has officially stepped aside from his ANC, National Executive Committee and NWC roles following weeks of back and forth between him and the ANC leadership. The party confirmed that it accepted Mchunu's personal plea after weeks of internal deliberation. Unlike the ANC's step-aside rule, Mchunu's move was voluntary and not sanctioned by court. The ANC leadership says it respects his decision, citing no legal challenges against him. The development marks a rare instance of self-initiated stepping down from top party structures by an ANC leader. Minister Mchunu has already been placed on special leave by the president following allegations made by Provincial Police Commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, of interference in police investigations as well as infiltration by criminal cartels of our country's justice system. So let us now turn to communications strategist and public affairs commentator Simphiwe Majola, as well as Professor Booysen, a political analyst who joins me in studio. Prof, let me start with you. Step aside is what we've come to term. It started as a resolution and was refined over a significant amount of back and forth, what it's meant to look like. When you look at what the ultimate position is around step aside in the ANC versus what Senzo Mchunu wanted to do, and initially the ANC said no, and now finally they've allowed him to do. How do the two sit side by side?
Yes, it's fascinating, and these are critical times for the ANC. And this difference comes in very importantly. The step aside, the rules say specifically when a member is indicted to appear in a court of law on criminal charges. And we know, obviously, these are not appearing in Senzo Mchunu's case. There are no criminal charges. There are very iniquitous situations. There are very different versions of possible realities and truths that sit side by side as the Commission and the committee, parliamentary committee, unfold in their deliberations. And Senzo Mchunu is definitely in a difficult position because there are discrepancies, there are huge questions that remain, and questions that don't just affect his personal and political future, but also the ANC. And so the ANC was strictly correct in saying, yes, there are no criminal charges. They cannot insist, will not insist that he goes. And then we don't know how behind the scenes, how much pressure there was to actually oblige him to step down. But I think the step down by the term now of another form of special leave. And so he probably, the reason given by the ANC and by Minister Mchunu's spokesperson is that given that so much is happening and he has to keep tabs on everything unfolding, it would basically be unfair, they argue, to require him to do his normal party duties, ANC duties, not government duties anymore, and to keep track of that. So it raises fascinating questions, of course, as to what is the objective, not just of him rescuing his own personal credibility, but whether the ANC and the minister, former minister or part-time minister, special leave minister, really want to see him step in. We know he's been a major candidate, mooted as a special candidate for parts of the ANC in forthcoming leadership elections. So it's really critical, and the two don't contradict each other, but in many ways it shows the inadequacy of the step-aside rule.
I want to take this conversation to Simphiwe Majola in a moment, but Prof, I think it would set up very nicely if you and I went back to the whole purpose of having a rule such as what we've come to know as step aside, because I think it came into play in this instance. Yes, he's not criminally charged, but each day you're hearing allegations that are not damaging not only to him, but to the reputation of the ANC. Wasn't this the whole point, to the extent that, Prof, between the 2017 and 2022 conferences of the ANC, it started so wide such that on some readings, it actually said the mere accusation of corruption should lead to you stepping aside, and then was refined to the position that you are outlining. But wasn't this the whole point, to protect the image of the ANC?
Absolutely. And it is such a specific objective and should be such a clear-cut objective. Protect the integrity of the ANC by now restore what is possible still to restore of the images and perceptions of the integrity of the ANC. And indeed, the rule, these developments help demonstrate that the rule has been inadequate, that it does not deal with that bigger picture. It deals with specific individuals and specific advanced cases. But the damage that is unfolding day to day, it does not deal with that. And it doesn't help to address questions. Because one of the big lessons I think South Africans have learned about government, ANC government, unfortunately, and corruption, is that there is so much still to be uncovered, and lift the lid slightly and things just stream out. And this is probably one of the most disconcerting aspects of the current developments and showing the inadequacy of the rule.
Simphiwe Majola, let me bring you into the conversation then. The ANC is a political brand, and as Prof and I were discussing in the last few minutes, went to some lengths to try and work in mechanisms meant to preserve and protect that brand. How do you believe those mechanisms have fared at the test that is the current case of Senzo Mchunu, that is not necessarily at a point that meets the threshold of a person being criminally charged?
Thank you so much for having me, Tula. When it comes to Senzo Mchunu, offer to step aside, the ANC had a real opportunity to demonstrate clarity, consistency, and leadership. And ideally, the party should have moved swiftly, communicated the process transparently, and anchored its actions in its own step-aside principles. It's moments like these where decisive communication will restore public confidence by showing that accountability is not only negotiable regardless of personality or seniority. I'm not too sure if I've answered correctly.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So is this one of those cases, Simphiwe, if I stick with you, is this one of those cases where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't? The ANC moving to say to Senzo Mchunu, step aside, opens a can of worms in that it says, well, I'm not charged with anything. I've just been placed on special leave by the president to allow for an investigation. But at the same time, by deciding to reject his offer to step aside, you're also communicating a message there, are you not?
Look, for me personally, inconsistency is very costly because when application of policy appears selective, public naturally reads it as either political favoritism or unresolved factional tensions. I mean, this doesn't just affect one case, it also weakens the institutional credibility overall. So consistency at this point is the currency of trust, and whenever it wavers, deeper fractures will become more visible. So it is important for them to have done whatever they've done.
Prof, just from a political brand perspective as well, just after these allegations happened, came out from General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi and the announcements of the various processes, one in Parliament, the other the Madlanga Commission, and we started hearing allegations being amplified, being given more detail. We did see Senzo Mchunu operating as an ANC NEC member. You started seeing where things that he would be saying while out and carrying out those duties were being read and interpreted, especially in the world of social media, and being related to the allegations that we are hearing. Did it become untenable for the ANC at some point?
I'm sure it did, and we see the evidence of that around us. And probably then interpreted through the former Minister Mkhunu's eyes, how these details just became more and more uncomfortable. And to the extent that it caused a lot of aspersion on the credibility of the ANC and whether it is indeed, whether it can be serious to have a person like that, even if just in party duty and carrying forth, working in the name of and representing the party. So it was very uncomfortable, but still the ANC seemed to have been prepared to stick with that line of thought. But yes, we think this current one probably came from both sides, both Mkhwanazi's side and the ANC side.
Yeah.
Given that the ANC needs absolutely every bit of opportunity to correct its image, to show that there was or this may be the end of the road in terms of tolerance of corruption. But we know it's so diffuse, so ingrained in state structure, in membership of the ANC, that it is very likely that such revelations as the current ones will continue.
Because the difficulty, Prof, and I suppose, let me just take it to its logical conclusion, is that if anything, cases like these, the Senzo Mchunu case, point to a situation where the threshold is not met. The person has not been charged with anything, but what is coming out is disturbing enough. What do you do in those instances? So is the weakness in the rule being exposed here?
The weakness is dramatically exposed in this current case. And I think there are many people who sit very uncomfortably, who in the past have been able to say, no, we appeal certain findings, even the Zondo Commission is not definitive, we take it on review. So many of those cases and many, many others down through the ranks of government, I'm sure are sitting very uncomfortably if this is the new de facto effective rule that is being given space to help redeem the ANC.
All right. I've got to thank you for coming through and sparing some time to come and have this conversation with me in studio. That's Professor Susan Booysen. We were also joined by Simphiwe Majola, a brand architect, reflecting on the ANC's step-aside rule and its application in this case of Senzo Mchunu.